Last Saturday night, there was a Juneteenth celebration in Willowbrook, Illinois. There was music and people gathered in a parking lot of a strip mall, and they were having a generally good time. And then gunfire erupted. At the end of just a few minutes, one person was dead, 22 had been wounded. Saturday night. That wasn't the only gun violence in the region over that weekend. We estimate that at least 9 were killed and another 55 injured from gunfire. It's a common occurrence, sadly, across America. We felt it in Illinois. Some estimate that we've had over 50 mass shootings so far this month, and we're only at June 22nd. What is going on in America? Serious question. But what has happened every weekend in most of the major cities of this country is a reminder that Americans cannot gather to celebrate a holiday, a graduation, or even a funeral without the ever-present threat of gun violence. Mr. President, it goes without saying, but I'm going to repeat it. Gunfire is the #1 killer of America's children. Gunfire is the #1 killer of America's children. Many of my constituents beg me to do something. As chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, they say, can't you at least regulate the use of some of these guns so that they don't get in the hands of people who will misuse them? I tell them I want to do that, and I share their sentiments, but I don't have the votes to do it. You need 60 votes on the floor of this 100-member Senate to get anything of that nature passed, and it's hard to do. 1 in 5 Americans say they've lost a loved one to gun violence. 1 in 5. That is unthinkable in other countries around the world, and yet it's become the American way, sadly. Yet today we are facing an incredible effort by the Senate Republicans a little later this morning. They are trying to take a gun safety law off the books. It isn't something that was just done yesterday and is considered to be a rash move. It's a law that's been on the books for 90 years. 90 years. They want to overturn a restriction by the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Agency that prevents people from turning pistols into short-barreled rifles. This restriction is on devices known as stabilizing braces. They convert pistols into a weapon that can be fired from the shoulder, but they still only have a barrel 16 inches long, so they can be easily hidden under a jacket. For almost 90 years, short-barreled rifles have been controlled under the National Firearms Act, along with machine guns and sawed-off shotguns. Why? Because they combine the accuracy of a rifle with the concealability of a handgun. It's a deadly combination. And we all know that because of the ammunition magazines that can be strapped onto so many pistols, that these become automatic weapons similar to AK-47s. Pistols with stabilizing braces have a reputation in this modern America, though they have been formally forbidden and prohibited and regulated for almost 90 years. The mass shooter who killed 9 people and injured 17 in Dayton, Ohio in 2019 used one of these weapons. By a mass shooter in Boulder, Colorado in 2021 who killed 10 people, including a policeman. And by another mass shooter who killed 5 and injured 19 in 2022 in Colorado Springs. The Covenant School shooting in Nashville, Tennessee this past March, that horrible scene that we remember, teachers and children being killed at their school, that shooter had one of these weapons as well. So a Republican senator is going to come to the floor today and say that we should reconsider a safety measure that's been on the books for almost 90 years to make it easier for people to buy virtually semi-automatic and automatic weapons that have been used in mass killings in America. What are we thinking? The 4th of July is just around the corner. I remember the last 4th of July. My wife and I were vacationing in Michigan. We heard the news. There had been a mass shooting in Highland Park, Illinois at the 4th of July parade. A gunman got on top of one of the downtown buildings when the crowd had gathered for this parade, and he used an AK-47 and fired 83 rounds in 60 seconds, firing randomly into a crowd, killing 7 innocent people, who just came out for the 4th of July parade and wounding almost 55 others. Think of that for a moment. In 60 seconds, that kind of damage, those kinds of weapons. And here we have, leaving for the 4th of July break this year, an effort by the Senate Republicans to authorize the use of weapons, piece of equipment for a weapon that has been used over and over again in America in mass shootings, killing innocent people, including school children in Nashville, Tennessee. What are they thinking? At a time when gun violence is the #1 killer of children, at a time when we read about it day in and day out, they want to make it easier to have a weapon equipped for easy use by one arm and not by two, that makes so many people vulnerable and kills them in such a rapid fashion. This makes no sense whatsoever, but it defines the Republican Party's attitude toward gun control. We have had one exception to what I just said, and that was last year. After the Uvalde incident, we finally did something. I think it was positive and it was bipartisan, and I salute the Republicans who joined in on that. But I hope today they come to their senses and don't overturn this 90-year-old law that makes it easier for people to use these weapons in a violent way, in a deadly way. The ATF rule gives law-abiding gun owners plenty of options to comply with the law. Removing this stabilizing brace, which is at issue here, attaching a longer barrel to the gun, or registering the weapon like other short-barreled rifles, because that's what it is. So there are ways, conceivably, that you can comply with the law, but they want to waive those requirements and make it easier to buy these weapons, equipment that can be used to make more deadly the weapon. The rule is common sense, and the last thing we should do is wipe it off the books. I urge my colleagues to vote no on the resolution.